Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been working front desk at the hotel for about a year when management decided to hire someone new for the night audit position. The shift came right after mine most days, so they asked me to stay an extra hour for a week or two to help train her on the basics she might have missed during orientation. The woman who showed up for training was probably around 60 years old. Her hair looked like it hadn't seen a brush in days, and there was a smell about her that made me keep my distance. She had that worn-down look of someone who'd been through some rough times. I tried not to judge, but I wondered why management had picked her for the job. The first couple of shifts went okay, I guess. She seemed to understand most of what I was showing her, even if she moved kinda slow and didn't seem all that interested in being there. But by the third day, I noticed something off. When she walked in, there was this strong smell of alcohol coming off her. I didn't say anything that first time. Maybe she'd had a drink at home before coming in, who knows. It wasn't really my business unless it affected her work. The second time I smelled it, I started paying closer attention. She worked nights alone, which meant I was the only other employee who would see her in this condition. I watched how she interacted with guests during our overlap, and it wasn't great. She was short with people, kind of rude actually, and she didn't seem to care about doing a good job. Then came the night that pushed me over the edge. I was getting ready to leave when a tour bus pulled up outside. At 10 p.m., I knew what was coming. The doors opened and about 30 Asian tourists came flooding into the lobby, all talking at once and waving their confirmation papers at me. We got a lot of tour buses at this hotel, so I was used to the chaos, but it still sucked when you were trying to end your shift. The new night auditor walked in right when this was happening. Perfect timing, right? I could have used the help, but she just stood there next to me while I scrambled to check everyone in. The front desk phone started ringing off the hook. I looked over at her. She told me she couldn't answer the phone. When I asked her what she meant, she said she was too scared and worried she might mess something up. I was already juggling 3 different guests trying to hand me their passports while another group was motioning frantically at their phones, trying to get me to help them connect to the Wi-Fi. These tours usually had people who didn't speak much English, and their phones weren't in English either, so it was always a nightmare trying to help them. I told her she needed to answer the phone because I was in the middle of something and needed her help. She just shook her head and kept standing there. The phone kept ringing. I ended up lunging for it myself while still trying to process a check-in on the computer. When I hung up and turned back to the guests, I saw her doing something that made my blood boil. One of the tourists was trying to show her his phone motioning at the Wi-Fi symbol. She literally shook her head, shrugged her shoulders, and then pointed at me. She was telling him that she couldn't help him and he needed to bother me instead. And the smell of alcohol on her was so strong I could barely stand being that close to her. It took me almost 45 minutes to get everyone checked in and sorted out. The whole time she just stood there watching me work. When the last of the tour group headed toward the elevators with their room keys, she finally spoke up. She asked if I minded her running out to grab a pizza real quick because she was starving. I stared at her. She had literally just arrived for her shift not even an hour ago. I pointed out that she'd just gotten there and asked why she couldn't just order delivery instead. She said it would be faster if she just went to pick it up herself, and that she'd only be gone about 20 minutes. I wanted to scream. There was no way I was staying here to do her job while she went and got food. I told her no and left for the night, fuming the entire drive home. But it got worse. Over the next few days, she called my personal cell phone 3 times with questions about the system. Basic stuff that she should have known. One of the calls came after midnight. I texted her back and told her to call our manager instead, not me. Then I came in for my shift and got blindsided. My manager pulled me into the office before I could even clock in. She was furious. Apparently someone had overbooked us the night before, and it was showing up under my login credentials in the system. I tried to explain that I hadn't been working the night before, but she showed me the timestamps. Everything had been logged under my name during the overnight shift. That's when I realized what had happened. The night auditor had gone through my personal binder in the office where I kept my login information written down. She'd used my credentials to do all her work, probably because she was too drunk to remember her own or too lazy to look them up. I was done. 2 shifts later, I came in with a plan. When she showed up for her shift, I changed my whole attitude. I smiled at her and asked how her day had been. I brought up local bars casually, asked her which ones she liked. Before I did any of this, I opened the voice recorder app on my phone and slipped it into my pocket, with the microphone facing out. She said she wasn't really a big drinker at first. I pushed a little, saying we all needed to unwind sometimes, and asked what her drink of choice was. She smiled a little. Then she started talking. She told me about the bar she'd stopped at before coming in tonight. She talked about how she'd had a couple of shots to help her deal with the stress of the job. I asked how she got to work after drinking, playing it off like I was just curious. She said she drove, and that it was fine because she was a good driver even after a few drinks. I kept my voice casual. I laughed and joked around with her a bit more, then she leaned in like she was telling me a secret. She said we should sneak a bottle of wine from the bar later, and that nobody would even notice. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. My hands were shaking when I pulled out my phone and called my manager. I told her everything. The drinking, the stealing my login, the laziness, the rudeness to guests, all of it. I said I had proof. She told me to sit tight and that she was coming in right away. I left before she arrived. I didn't want to be there for whatever was about to go down. The next shift, I came in and immediately asked the morning desk agent what had happened. She looked at me with wide eyes and told me the whole story. My manager had shown up with a security guard. They confronted the night auditor about the drinking and she'd been fired on the spot. Then they'd called the police to escort her off the property. But here's where it got really good. When the cops arrived, they asked to search her car since she'd admitted to driving drunk. She agreed, probably thinking she had nothing to hide. They found drugs in her vehicle. Not just a little bit either. Enough that they arrested her right there in our parking lot. I was shocked. A few days later, I was hanging out in the security office with the maintenance guy who I was friendly with. I knew how to access the camera footage, so we pulled up the recordings from that night. We watched the whole thing unfold, with audio. Her face when the cops pulled out the drugs, the way she started crying and trying to make excuses, her being put in handcuffs and led away. People really don't know when to quit. I've been driving truck with my dad for the past 2 years, crisscrossing the country 40 plus weeks a year. We ran dedicated routes that kept us far from home most of the time, only making it back for a day or two here and there when our schedule allowed. This week was different though. We actually got a full week off, and I was already planning all the home-cooked meals I wanted to make. That meant I needed groceries, and like an idiot, I decided to go to Walmart instead of the smaller store near my house. I used to work there when I was a cashier before I started trucking, and despite 2 years of dealing with difficult customers, I'd somehow kept my customer service smile intact. My old co-workers used to joke that nothing could break my sunny disposition. I'd actually enjoyed the job, weird when that sounds, and I still liked chatting with the employees and regulars I knew when I stopped in. That day, I'd already caught up with a few familiar faces and was deep into hunting for ingredients for a new recipe. I had my Blue Parrot headset on, the same one I wore while driving, and was listening to a YouTube channel that read Walmart Horror Stories. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was scanning the spice shelf, checking my phone for the recipe, when I heard it. A throat clearing. That specific, aggressive kind of throat clearing. I had no idea how long she'd been standing there. When I looked up, a middle-aged woman was glaring at me like I'd personally offended her entire family. I muted my phone and shifted my cart away from the shelves, giving her my automatic customer service smile. I started to apologize if I was in her way, but she cut me off. She told me I shouldn't ignore a customer like that and said it was unprofessional. She complained about how they appoint barely teenagers to management. She kept going, ranting about how management meant experience, but I'd already stopped paying attention. I looked down at myself. I was wearing pastel pink capri, a flouncy olive green blouse, and shiny bronze flats. Nice, sure, but definitely not a Walmart uniform. This woman, on the other hand, looked like she just rolled out of bed in a camo hoodie, workout pants that had never seen a gym, lime green running shoes, and a baseball cap with a ponytail pulled through the back. She had a Coach purse in her cart that probably cost more than her entire outfit times three. I told her I didn't work there. I gestured to the call button mounted on a post a few feet behind me and explained that if she needed help with something, she could just press that button and it would call someone for her. Usually, I didn't mind helping people find things. Former customers asked me all the time, and if I wasn't busy and they were nice about it, I'd help. But this woman had already rubbed me the wrong way. Plus, her perfume was making my nose itch. She asked me why I was lying and said I worked there. She told me I'd checked her out numerous times and she didn't appreciate being lied to. She said something about the nerve. I dropped my smile and sighed. I'm only nice when I want to be, and according to my friends, my natural expression makes me very unapproachable. I told her again that I didn't work there anymore and that I was in the middle of getting my own groceries. I suggested we just not do this. I turned back to the shelf, found the spice I needed, and reached to put it in my cart. That's when a sharp, nasty pain exploded in the side of my head. I yelped, probably louder than necessary, but I'm very tender-headed, and she'd completely caught me off guard. The woman had grabbed my headset and yanked it off my head. My hair is thick and wavy, and the headrest tangled in it. Instead of coming off cleanly, she just pulled out a chunk of my hair. She didn't even manage to free the headset, just dropped it, and gravity yanked my hair again when it hung there tangled. My eyes were watering, my scalp was throbbing, and she didn't even apologize. She told me not to dare walk away from her and asked how I dared speak to her that way. She said she didn't care if I was management now or what, that I still worked at Walmart. She added that I was still not important to her. That last comment made me pause while I was trying to untangle my hair. I've always hated how people look down on Walmart employees. Most of the cashiers and floor staff I knew were either students or retired professionals like teachers and nurses. Our older workers were just part-timers looking for something to do. I was pissed. I told her very clearly that I did not work there. She started to say something about not this again and that she'd told me something, but I cut her off. I kept repeating that I didn't work there, getting louder and louder until I was screaming at her. She backed away from me, looking shocked. I learned early on that I'm the last kind of person people expect to hear yell, and I've learned to use that to my advantage. The screaming drew a crowd, including a Walmart employee I was familiar with and my former manager. By the time they showed up, I'd stopped screaming and was just glaring at the shell-shocked woman while trying to untangle my headset from my hair. The Walmart employee asked what was going on and if someone was hurt. The woman pointed at me, big crocodile tears streaming down her face. She claimed that I went crazy when she tried to ask me where something was, and that I started screaming in her face and even swung at her. She said I needed to go to jail, or at least be fired. One of the random customers was already patting her shoulder, trying to console her. The employee and my former manager turned to me just when I finally got my headset free, with a good clump of hair still wrapped around it. My former manager asked if I was all right and what happened. She wanted to know why I was screaming and what was with all the hair. She didn't wait for my response. I really wasn't in the state of mind to give one anyway, since I tend to go mute when I get very upset. She looked from my face to my hands holding the headset with hair hanging from it, then turned back to the woman. My former manager asked her to tell what happened again and also perhaps tell her why I was holding a chunk of my hair. The woman asked what about my hair and said she told them I attacked her. She insisted she was the victim and asked if they were believing me over her because I was their employee. The Walmart employee pointed out that still didn't answer the question. She asked if the woman pulled out my hair and what kind of person does that. The crowd started murmuring and the woman obviously realized she was losing popular opinion. I was starting to calm down, rubbing my scalp to ease the pain. At least there was no blood. The woman said she was just asking me a question and I ignored her. She explained that she pulled off my headphones to get me to listen to her. She added that it wasn't her fault I didn't brush my hair. The Walmart employee said that was assault and asked why she would ever put her hands on someone. She asked what was the matter with her for telling everyone that I attacked her. My former manager said she thought it was time they called for the sheriff's department. The woman's eyes widened when she realized she might have messed with the wrong person, but I can be nice when I want to. I said I was fine and to just make her leave me alone. I told them I didn't want to spend one of my precious nights at home with a police officer unless he was buying me dinner. The crowd laughed. My former manager asked if I was sure. I said no, but that I had cold things to get home, a dinner to cook, and my dad was probably wondering what was taking so long. My former manager nodded and made the woman follow her while the crowd dispersed. The Walmart employee stayed with me and we chatted while I got the last few things I needed and checked out. My former manager came up to me afterwards and told me she'd had the woman banned from the store. That really sucked for her because this was the only Walmart in the county, and the closest one I knew of was over 40 minutes away. Apparently, I wasn't the first person the woman had harassed, although all the others had been actual employees. The security footage clearly showed her trying to snatch off my headset. My former manager told me that if it had been her, she would have shocked the woman in the mouth, which was surprising because she was a former elementary school teacher who taught for close to 40 years. She said she wouldn't have hesitated to backhand the woman after I explained what she'd said to me. We chatted some more, laughed a bit, and then I went home. A few days later, I was at Lowe's picking up mulch for my dad's newly built raised flower beds and some supplies for a home project. I was looking at screws and had just finished chatting with an employee I knew about my cat. I own a Sphinx, a hairless cat named Pan, who goes everywhere with me. Since Lowe's is pet-friendly, he usually tags along and sits in the child seat of the cart without complaint. All the staff adore him. After the employee left to check her section, promising to bring back cat treats for Pan, I turned my attention back to the screws. Seconds later, I heard someone growl out the word, "You." I turned around wide-eyed to find the same woman from Walmart standing there, glaring at me. I was wearing jean shorts, a red blouse with a bandana print, flip-flops, and my hair pulled up with a scrunchie. Definitely not a Lowe's uniform. She announced that this was where I worked. I said sorry in a confused tone. She said, "Oh, I would be sorry." She demanded to know where my manager was and told me to get him for her now. She said she wanted me fired after what I did to her the other day. I'll admit I wasn't on my best game. It had been a long day. My dad and I had spent most of it out in the yard, and I was sun-tired. I told her I didn't work there either. She called me a liar and said she saw me talking with my coworker. She claimed no one talks that much with staff unless they're an employee. She demanded I get her my manager right then. Her comment irritated me. By her logic, I should also work at the bank, the water company, the electric company, and pretty much everywhere else I run errands in town. I asked if she was deaf and told her I didn't work there. I explained that the employee and I were just talking about my baby. She asked what baby. She peeked around me at Pan sitting there doing his best yoga pose with his back leg thrown high in the air while he cleaned himself. She shrieked, making me step back into the shelves. Pan didn't even acknowledge her, too busy cleaning and used to loud noises from living on a truck. She asked what that hideous creature was. I started to say whoa and hang on, but she cut me off. She demanded to know how I dared bring that disgusting thing in a store and called him a naked rat. I told her it was my cat and called her a dumb A. I actually think she was getting ready to throw something at me or Pan if the Lowe's employee didn't appear, followed by my dad. The Lowe's employee asked the woman to please calm down and asked me what was going on. The woman said I brought a disgusting creature into the store. She demanded a manager and said she wanted me fired and banned. The Lowe's employee asked what she meant by disgusting. My dad asked what she meant by fired. The Lowe's employee explained that this was a pet-friendly store and that Pan was a welcome guest. She said he may be unusual looking, but he was a very good fur baby. The woman said that thing was an abomination and asked what if children saw it. While the employee was defending Pan's honor, my dad nudged me. He asked me what the hell was going on with this woman. I asked if he remembered that stupid woman. I told him about that thought I still worked at Walmart. He asked if it was the one that pulled out my hair when she tried to snatch off my headset. I said, huh? My dad's eyes went from mildly annoyed to fully pissed off. He really deserves a nickname like Tiger Mom or Mama Bear. He has a big heart and is a surrogate dad to anyone who needs one, but biologically, I'm his only child. I'm his #1 priority. And this woman had dared to mess with me. He told me to tell the employee to get her manager. He stepped forward, calling for the woman's attention. He said he was my boss and asked what exactly I did to her. The woman got this smug grin on her face when she looked from the employee to me and then to my dad. Then her expression twisted when she recounted how I'd harassed her in Walmart a couple of days ago and got her thrown out because I was friends with management, and how I'd spotted her today and started threatening her and taunting her and yelling at her to get out of the store. This woman had a screw loose. I managed to mumble to the employee to go fetch the manager, and she came back quickly with him just when the woman was demanding my dad kick me out and complaining about how she couldn't believe employees acted like this and brought ugly animals to their place of work. The manager stepped up looking confused. He said he was the shift manager and asked what seemed to be the problem. My dad said, yeah, sorry to bother him, but this woman came up and started screaming at his daughter. He explained that she assaulted her at the Walmart on Friday and got banned from the store. He added that now she seemed to think she could get his daughter banned from here in return, so she was making wild accusations. The woman's jaw dropped when she looked between me and him. She asked if I was his daughter and said she thought he said he was my manager. My dad said no, he said he was my boss, which he was. He made it clear I did not work here or at Walmart. The woman said you a couple times, seeming unable to form words. She made a strangled sound in her throat, her face turning almost purple. Whatever she wants to say, I guess words couldn't convey, because suddenly she launched herself at us, arms raised, fingers curled like claws. My dad was too quick for her. He shoved me out of the way and sidestepped her, causing her to run full force into the shelf behind us. She's lucky the lower drawers kept her from impaling herself on the hanging racks. Judging by her screams, I'm pretty sure she scratched the hell out of her arms when she fell back onto the floor. She began shouting about assault and for help and for the police. She got her wish. The manager radioed for security, and in less than a minute, 2 guys were hauling a screeching and cursing woman toward the front of the store. The police were called, and what should have been a 30-minute shopping trip turned into an hour-and-a-half-long ordeal of speaking with multiple managers, giving statements to the police, watching the woman lose it on the police and have to be tasered in order to be handcuffed, and agreeing that this time, yes, I wanted to press charges. They took security tapes, and I gave them the name of my former manager from Walmart to contact, confirming the earlier incident and getting their security tapes went well. We finally got to pay for our stuff, the manager insisting on giving us 10% off our final purchase price for all the trouble. Plus, he knew from working with us in the past just how much we'd spent at his store in the last year while we'd been landscaping my dad's new property. That made my dad very happy, and he spent the last couple hours calling up his buddies and telling them about the lunatic at Lowe's and how he got a discount. He's a simple person to please. I wish he wouldn't have told his wife though, because she got very upset and worried about us and demanded we leave the rest of the yard work and my project until tomorrow and just relax for the rest of the night. We obliged her. I'm so shocked by this woman. I have never been spoken to by a stranger like this outside of my stint doing retail. She won't be finding help at Lowe's though, because we were assured she was banned from there when well. Lowe's is also the only home improvement store in our county. The next available one is a Home Depot about 30 minutes up the interstate. I was contacted a few weeks later and told that she'd pled guilty on old charges when part of a plea deal. At the time of her arrest, on top of her charges for harassing and assaulting me, she was also charged with resisting arrest and assault of an officer because she spit in his face. She was also carrying a controlled substance, and she had enough of it that the charge was upped to possession with intent to sell. The deal was probably about getting her supplier, but they didn't give me details because it was still an ongoing case. She's in the county jail now. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.